Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another installment of Afternoons with the Ambassador. And today, me and Mountains of Elysium, or Knight of Elysium, are concluding our talk on Star Wars lore, and we are wrapping up with the expanded universe. And yeah, Elysium, it's been quite a ride.
It's been fun and got to learn a lot more. I was able to cut off the little pigtails, so I am no longer Padawan but Knight, and quite pleased.
Yep. So, well, and today, as I said, we're talking the expanded universe, and that encompasses a lot. So, Elysium, I don't know how much of the expanded universe you know about, or if you know anything about it. If you want me to kind of kick off the discussion, and we can go from there, or if you've got specific questions, we can do that.
Well, I suppose if I mention, it's more of a case of I've heard of, and I've mentioned a few things mentioned, and then we can decide where to go. I've heard of, was it Mara Jade? I know she's supposed to be Luke Skywalker's wife.
Yes.
Was it the Yuuzhan Vong?
Yeah, the Yuuzhan Vong War, which encompassed a lot of material. I mean, an awful lot of material. That was a multi-part book series that took several years to complete. I think the best place to start in terms of the EU, or what they call now Legends and everything, would be to start where the whole expanded universe started, and that was with the original Thrawn trilogy that was written by Timothy Zahn. And this actually, for a lot of people, was the kickoff for the expanded universe. I remember it was in like the early 90s, and there was rumors floating around that a new trilogy of Star Wars stories was going to be started. But this time it wasn't going to be movies. It was all going to be based on books. Or it was going to be written in books. And what we got was a 3-book series by, as I said, Timothy Zahn. It was called Heir to the Empire. Book 2 is called Dark Force Rising, and book 3 was the Last Command. And if I remember correctly, this particular story arc takes place like 5 or 6 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. And we get introduced to several characters. One that you already mentioned, Mara Jade, a confederate of hers, Talon Karrde, who was a smuggler, kind of along in the same vein of like Han Solo and Lando Calrissian, or maybe more like Lando Calrissian, because he had a rather large operation that he was working. We also got introduced to the character of Grand Admiral Thrawn and Admiral Pellaeon, who were both from the Imperial military, or the Imperial Navy. And the interesting thing, and we got introduced to another character, which was specifically within the this story arc, was the character of Joruus C'baoth. And Joruus C'baoth was actually a Jedi Master that was part of the Order during the latter years of the Old Republic. And what we had with this story was the fact that Thrawn was working to pretty much destroy the Republic and bring the Empire back into a place of prominence in the galaxy. And what we have is him going around the galaxy collecting different pieces of old Imperial or old Republic tech, and what he comes across is a what they call like a storage house or world or anything that had been set up by Palpatine. And on this particular world, which was called Wayland, was a cloning facility, anything that contained cloning technology, not much different from what was used by the Kaminoans in Attack of the Clones, and was under the care of this Sith Lord, or not this fallen. He was essentially a fallen Jedi, and Oh, for Pete's sakes. Give me 1 second, Elysium. I've got AVG popping up. Go away. There we go. Much better. And Thrawn brings Sobayoth under his not control, but they make an alliance. Let's put it that way. And throughout the story arc, you've got Sobayoth trying to capture Luke and Leia because he wants to clone them as well and make them his apprentices and create a whole army of force wielders and so on. And you've got Thrawn doing his thing. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but it has a very interesting and very satisfying conclusion. So, another big part of the EU and everything that I was exposed to, that I was a huge fan of, was when Dark Horse Comics started doing comic book series or anything within the Star Wars universe. Now, the neat thing about Dark Horse was they didn't focus specifically on the main Star Wars time frame, that being either during or in between the original trilogy films. They focused on larger stories that took place in the distant past of the Star Wars universe, when the Republic was in its infancy and several years or anything into the formation of the Jedi Order. So, and there were several series that they had that I actually enjoyed. Now, they did do some other stories that did take place in the aftermath of Return of the Jedi, and even in the aftermath of the first Thrawn trilogy, which I just talked about. So, and we got introduced to a lot of interesting characters, a lot of characters that have become fan favorites. Now, the interesting thing about the expanded universe is it doesn't just stick specifically to books and comics, although that is the main media that makes up the expanded universe. You've also got video games. For instance, you've got the first KOTOR game, the first Knights of the Old Republic game, which introduced us to characters like Darth Revan and Darth Malak. You've got Knights of the Old Republic 2, which introduced us to the General, or the Outcast. Also Darth Sion, Darth Nihilus, and Darth Kreia. And we got all sorts of really cool characters, anything that the EU gave us the opportunity to interact with and get introduced to. And very quickly to the chat, Pixelated, good to see you, my friend. Glad you could pop in. So, that all being said, Elysium, is there anything that I just said that you want me expand upon?
I said it's difficult because some of this stuff, like Tron, I'd like to find out and read.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's stuff I'd like to know, but I'd also like to, and somewhat, explore myself. So this is a tough one for me to kind of going, well, I'd love to know, but how much do I want to know?
Well, I can give you like the background on the character without necessarily spoiling anything about the main storyline. So if you want me to go that route, I can.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Grand Admiral Thrawn is a part, or simply Thrawn as he's known within the Imperial military before he gets bumped up to the rank of Grand Admiral, was a member of a race or anything that's out in like what they call, I think, the wild regions of space, or the unknown regions of space, called the Chiss. And I think the confederation of planets that make up the Chiss, I think it's called the Chiss Ascendancy, and everything, are their appearance is rather unique. Well, in particular with Thrawn. He has jet black hair. He has deep blue skin. I mean, it's like a blue, like, almost like the blue that you would see on like a husky's eyes, or maybe even a little bit deeper. And the Chiss generally have red eyes. Now, this is not due to any particular predilection to the Force or anything. This is simply how the race the race. This is simply the race's appearance. And they are known for their military discipline, their very sharp military minds. And the interesting thing about Thrawn is he studies the art and culture of different races to learn how to defeat them in combat.
From what I understand,
Mm-hmm.
Thrawn is not an evil character. He's basically, this is just from my understanding of him, that he's more of a student of war.
Mm-hmm.
And that he's, I suppose, just a character, not evil. He's supporting the Empire because it gives him opportunity.
Yes.
Not,
go ahead.
but not kind of not to be cruel, but to prove himself.
Yes. Well, the thing about Thrawn is this. He came into the Empire through a back door, essentially, and he entered into the Imperial Academy, and he very much excelled because of his very sharp militaristic mind. And that's one thing that, like I said, that the Chiss are known for. They're strategists, they're tacticians. They're probably some of the very best in the galaxy. And Thrawn works his way up through the ranks of the Imperial Navy. And eventually he becomes amongst a select few of Grand Admirals. Not only that, he is the only alien Grand Admiral. The rest of the Grand Admirals were human. Well, what we would consider as human, although they would come from different worlds and so on. But yeah, Thrawn has long been a lot of people's favorite character, not to mention myself. So, now there is a story and everything within the in the EU, the expanded universe, that he made a bargain with Palpatine. And it was under the table. Nobody else knew this. And basically, the deal was he would work with the Imperial military in exchange for a promise from Palpatine that the Empire would never invade Chiss space, which Palpatine did agree to, because while Palpatine was hungry for power, he was also a pragmatist. And he realized that having a Grand Admiral of Thrawn's skill and ability at his disposal was far better than trying to conquer a small fraction of space.
And from my point, that makes Palpatine a more rounded character. He's not he didn't have mustache, but if he had to twirl, that he's a pragmatist, a deeper character. And it's something I've come to appreciate more about the Star Wars characters. Though they might be light or dark, they're complex.
Yes.
And deep characters. They're not cardboard. And maybe that's one of the advantages of the expanded universe or extended universe, that it gives more depth to characters. I know it's not canon, but it's world building is something that always fascinates me and I really enjoy.
Well, here's the interesting thing. With the expanded universe, what it does, it offers the opportunity to introduce new characters, but it also gives the opportunity to flesh out existing characters, because there are grades or levels of canon within the Star Wars universe, and this is something that exists within different fandoms or fictional universes. Like, for instance, with Star Trek, there is what is considered the main cinematic canon, and then there is B canon, which is all the books and novels and video games and so on that have been created that surround the Star Wars or the Star Trek universe. The expanded universe of Star Wars operates pretty much on the same level in a manner of speaking. You can, if you choose to incorporate the expanded universe canon into the cinematic canon, you can. but it's not a necessary thing. It does flesh out the characters, it offers new adventures, it introduces new characters and so on, but it's not a mandatory thing that has to be done, for the simple fact that the cinematic canon can stand on its own without the existence of the expanded universe. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I suppose you could take the extended universe as canon until contradicted on screen by an
In a matter of
official.
speak, yeah. To kind of bounce off what you just said, there's a particular storyline from Dark Horse Comics called Dark Empire 2, and Empire's End. And what these three stories, they are pretty much a unified whole. And anything you can read as a unified whole. What the storyline tells is this is several years after the events of both the Thrawn trilogy and also the end of the main saga movies, and it deals with a resurrected Palpatine. And this is something that they kind of yoinked from Dark Empire and put into Rise of Skywalker. What Palpatine had done throughout the years was he would clone bodies of himself, a younger version of himself. And what he would do is he would transfer his consciousness from body to body to body as each body either was destroyed or degraded to the point where it can no longer house his power. And what Dark Empire does is it really beefs up the stakes. It introduces a lot of new and different characters. And it kind of brings a conclusion to the war between the Republic and the Empire. So, but yeah, if there was a list of EU material that I would suggest you read if you can get your hands on it, I would recommend getting your hands on the original Thrawn trilogy. They did do a second Thrawn trilogy, everything called The Ghost of Thrawn, and from what I hear, it's actually a pretty cool story and everything. I would recommend reading that. If you can find copies of Dark Empire and Dark Empire 2 and so on, and not to mention what is known as the Tales of the Jedi. This is a line and everything of comics and everything that Dark Horse, as I mentioned, that deals with the ancient history of the Star Wars universe in terms of the Jedi and the early Republic and all that stuff. So there are like 2 or 3 stories in particular that I would recommend and everything. One is called The Golden Age of the Sith, The Fall of the Sith Empire, and The Sith War. Everything, which are all kind of, the first 2 parts are deeply interconnected. The third part does have ties to the first 2 series of comics and everything, but it's not directly. So, and to the chat, Robert Green, a brand new subscriber. Your greetings, Robert. Glad you could pop by, and welcome to the channel. Thank you for being here. And Nancy V333, good evening or good afternoon, ma'am. Good to see you as always. So, hope you're having a good day. So, yeah, Robert, they did do a second Thrawn trilogy. I think, like I said, it's called The Ghost of Thrawn or something along those lines and everything. And it deals with like a I'm trying to think, what was the name of the I haven't read it. I'll be candid with you all because I haven't read everything in the expanded universe. It'd be exceedingly difficult to read absolutely everything in the expanded universe. But I do know that there is a second trilogy. And Neon Sci-Fi, good afternoon. Good to see you as well. Glad you could pop by again. Now, Elysium, of everything I've said, again, is there anything you want me to expand upon?
No, I think we've. I think it's pretty well covered. Like I was saying previous, this is something I want to dive into and maybe not have too much spoiled. So I think we've covered as much. You've whet the appetite for Tron and for
for Thrawn. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, we can't transition to a different media. We can transition to like the video games and so on. And I would say a lot of people would agree one of the best known video games or anything in the expanded universe, like I said, is Knights of the Old Republic. And very quickly to the chat, Happy Dinosaur 8000. Good to see you, bud. It's been a while. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good day. And thank you for popping in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great to see you. Chomp Chomp, Happy Dinosaur.
Yeah, good to see you, Chompy. Now, this was a first attempt at doing a I think Nancy's and everything kind of doing a play on words. The way you're saying Thrawn, it sounds like Tron, but that's not your fault. It's your. Hold on one second.
Could be an Irish thing too. Tron and Tron. I say them the same way.
Sorry about that. My phone was going off and I muted it. Okay. Had that happen the other day while I was doing a review and everything with another channel. I was like, I forgot to mute my phone and I don't want to move. No, it's okay. It's all right, Nancy. As I started to say, there was a attempt to do a Star Wars RPG video game. And this game was called Knights of the Old Republic. It deals with a story arc that takes place literally several thousand years before, I think the prequels had started by this point. I'm pretty sure they had. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure Knights of the Old Republic came out right around the same time as the prequels did. But this takes place like 6,000 some odd years or so before the events of any of the movies. And it deals with a war between the Republic and a group of dark Jedi. Now, these aren't Sith. This takes they're not titled as Sith. It deals with two fallen Jedi and everything by the names of Revan and Malak. And essentially, they return and everything from the Mandalorian Wars, and they start to conquer the Republic, and successfully. The Republic is getting its picked by Revan and Malak because Revan was very much a great strategist in terms of, and not to mention a very powerful Jedi in his own right. And Malak was his apprentice and everything. And you get introduced to both of them. You get introduced to another character by the name of Bastila Shan, who was also a member of the Jedi Order. And you get introduced to a whole lot of different characters and everything. One in particular that I always found of great humor was an assassin droid by the designation. Dang it, I can't talk today. But that's a nice lady of HK-44. And he had a very, let's put it, dark sense of humor. And throughout the course of the story, now the cool thing about this game was it actually has two endings. And this was something that was kind of new in video games. They had done it, I think, like a few times. They had done it with different types of video games where they did not maybe necessarily multiple endings, but did a couple of different type endings depending on the decisions you make throughout the game. And in Knights of the Old Republic, I don't want to spoil it for you. I really don't, because if you can buy it for PC, I would recommend playing it on PC. or anything or whatever? Because obviously I'm assuming you have a laptop, and you can probably get it relatively cheap, like off of eBay or something, or you maybe even. Well, question, Elysium, do you have a Steam account?
Do you know what? I have, but it's been so long since I used it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably have to dig up the password somewhere.
You can actually probably get it relatively cheap off of Steam. You just have to make sure it works right, because sometimes it doesn't work quite right on computers and everything. But I would highly recommend, if you love RPG gaming and everything, particularly RPG video games, and obviously you're a fan of Star Wars, I would recommend checking out the game. It's actually a lot of fun. I I don't want to tell you too much, but because the story is so good, I don't want to ruin it for you. But I can tell you I can tell you a few little things. For instance, this has a very RPG feel to it. You have a character sheet, and you can adjust the skills and abilities of your characters and all the characters quite literally. You can equip them with different weapons and outfits and equipment and all sorts of stuff. You can customize your own lightsabers with different types of crystals, and depending on the different types of crystals, it depends on how the lightsaber functions in combat and how it enhances or maybe as a detriment to your ability, the abilities of your character. But it's now the graphics are the graphics of the time, and this is like the early 2000s. So the graphics are they leave a little bit to be desired. But if you can get past that, the story and the gameplay and just the overall arc is a lot of fun.
I think if you can, when it comes to something like this,
mm-hmm.
The graphics can be poor or bad. If the story is engaging, you'll become immersed and it won't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like with Babylon 5, a lot of the graphics don't hold up, but the story is so good, you forgive.
Yeah, very, very, very true. The other thing I would, the other game I would suggest or anything, and there are several games quite literally that kind of fall under the canopy of the expanded universe, and one and everything is Republic Commando, which actually takes place and everything during the prequel period. It actually takes place shortly before. Nancy, that's a good one. Very, very good. But as I was saying, I don't know how you are with first-person shooters or anything like that, if you like them, if you don't like them. But Republic Commando, it actually gives you the opportunity to see what it's like to live, or, well, in a manner of speaking, to operate within a squad of clone troopers. But this is a different type of breed of clone trooper. You saw the season 7 of Clone Wars, right?
I haven't seen any of Clone Wars.
Dang it. Okay. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not a huge, massive spoiler and anything because I won't tell you any plot points. But at the beginning of season 7 of Clone Wars, we get introduced to a group of clones called the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch, and this has been an assertion of mine, I think there are several people who are in the chat that if they've watched Clone Wars would probably agree with me. The Bad Batch was based on the squad of clones that we are introduced to in Republic Commando. And you go on various types of missions. You actually, the cool thing about this is each member of the squad has a different ability. Then Nancy, Nancy, I think you would enjoy this. And I think if you've never played Republic Commando, I would highly recommend getting your hands on a copy if you're able to. But you've got the main character or the squad leader, Delta 7, I think, is his call sign. And he's actually the voice of the squad leader. Is actually voiced by Tamora Morrison, who did, as you know, the voice of Jango, who played Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. You've got a sniper, you've got a heavy ordnance clone, and you've got a hacker clone. And each one of them has a different skill set that you can access or anything to complete various tasks. And the really cool thing about this is throughout the game, you have to learn how to function within this squad because there are no power-ups. You're welcome, Nancy, anytime. And there aren't any like super weapons or anything like this that the squad gets their access to. Now, there are different weapons that you pick up along the way you can use for a limited amount of time and everything, but it's nothing permanent. And like I said, if you are a fan of first-person shooters, Elysium, I would recommend playing Republic Commando at some point. And I will tell you one thing: it does lead, at least in part, straight into Revenge of the Sith, the movie. So now, in terms of television shows within the expanded universe, we've gotten at least one or two more since the EU originally started, but the one that everybody talks about the most, and with good reason, is the Clone Wars animated series. Everything that was put up by Lucasfilm. Clone Wars takes place in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. It covers all those years of war and everything. And you get several different story arcs. Now, the cool thing about Clone Wars is oftentimes a season will be broken up into like 3 or 4 episode arcs focusing on a different group or a single character. And that was something that was actually really cool about this show. It wasn't something that had been done before, per se, for the simple fact that with the fact that there hadn't been a Star Wars television show, animated or live action, before then, and the fact that they would take 3 or 4 episode arcs and just focus on a certain group of characters. Like, for instance, we get introduced to this brand new character of Ahsoka Tano, which turned out to be Anakin's Padawan. And over time, you see the development and growth of this character. And she, for a lot of people, becomes a very endearing character, and particularly for myself and everything, particularly in season 7. Season 7 and everything, particularly the last several episodes of the season, really centered around her. And Robert Greene, Babylon 5, I will always say, B actors, A+ story. I might disagree with you a little bit, Robert, but you know what? We would be arguing semantics, so it's okay. But anyhow, Clone Wars really develops the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin. It develops, at least in some ways, the relationship between Anakin and Padme, because there are some episodes that deal with her. We get more time with the different Jedi. We even get more time with Count Dooku and Darth Sidious. And, of course, we do in Clone Wars and everything. I don't think this would be a major spoiler, or it might be. I don't know. We get the return of Darth Maul. Now, I don't know if that was something you were already aware of or not, Elysium, but there it is.
Yes, I had heard that he had reappeared, but don't know the context.
Well, I'll give you the short version, but I won't spoil anything for the show specifically. He essentially survived his duel on Naboo from the Phantom Menace, and eventually he is rediscovered and brought back into the universe, and he causes all sorts of shenanigans. So, and now we did before they did season 7, they did have a continuation, in a manner of speaking, of the story from Attack of the Clones in some ways. But we got another show called Rebels. Now, a lot of people, for some fans, myself included, Rebels is about 50-50. It's not too terribly bad, but at times it can be kind of cringy. So, but at the same time, it does play homage to a lot of the themes and certain characters from the Clone Wars animated series. So, and there have been rumors that there might be another season of Rebels. We haven't heard this for certain, but I would definitely recommend anything whenever you can get access to Disney Plus. They have all 7 seasons of Clone Wars and everything on there, and I would recommend watch it from season 1 to season 7. Now, I will give you fair warning: the first couple of seasons are kind of rough in terms of story and what have you. But at the same time, if you can work your way through those first couple of seasons or so, the story really does start to pick up, and by the end of season 7, you more than likely will walk away satisfied. So. And to chat, Robert Green, love the Babylon 5, Fall of Centauri Prime books. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to read them. My base reference for Babylon 5 was the TV show and the TV movies. That was it, unfortunately. So, but yeah, if anyone's ever read the books, I'm just a little envious of you. So. That all being said, Elysium, anything along those lines in terms of TV shows that you wanted me to elaborate on?
Just remembering, but because I remember when I was younger, I think was it Ewoks? Was that part of canon, or is that completely?
You talking about the cartoon?
The cartoons, the previous, like the first animated series. Was that?
Oh,
okay.
You're talking about the Ewoks cartoon and the Droids cartoon. Those would likely fall under EU, but we really don't discuss it. It's kind of like
special.
It's kind of like the holiday special. We know it's there, but we don't talk about it because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really add anything to the overall story of the Star Wars universe. So
I suppose one of the reasons why, and I think that I don't mind the sequel trilogy at all, is I have seen the holiday special, and it really is that bad.
Yeah, the holiday special, which I've never actually seen all the way through, and I really don't have any desire to do so either. And I'll be perfectly candid with you. I mean, if it was like on a dare or something like that or whatever,
a drunk watch party might be fun.
Yeah, but I might need some adult beverage to get through that. So I might need an adult beverage to get through that thing. It's cringy as it is. So, but yeah.
I suppose that was just going quick aside. The 2 series we're talking about. I do remember seeing some of Clone Wars, but honestly couldn't remember any of it. But it did look quality.
The animation is very high quality, and it actually gets better as the series goes along, particularly in season 7. The character textures and the world textures and everything, they really were able to smooth things out and make things look even more realistic. So I will tell you that much for certain. Now, in terms of Mandalorian, though, this is something relatively new. It is, I think, for a lot of people, would be considered expanded universe, even though, sadly, the expanded universe got nuked by our dear friends at Lucasfilm. Thank you ever so much, you giant piles of hot dung. Thank you for uncanonizing the expanded universe. Yeah. Anyway, Mandalorian would be most likely considered under expanded universe or anything, or legends or anything for a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily expand upon the main story, but it's a cool side story that takes place within the universe. So, and I know we had talked about this previously, whether or not we wanted to discuss, as I mentioned before, Solo and Rogue One. I would definitely say that those would fall under expanded universe or legends. They flesh out the story, or they're cool side stories, but they're not part of the overall arc and anything. Although Rogue One kind of technically is and everything, for the simple fact that it's almost a bridge between the prequels and the original trilogy. So, but I don't know if you ever got to see Rogue One or not.
I did, and honestly, I really, really enjoyed it. I'll have to say, like, the 9 main story and the 2 side story movies, I enjoyed them, even though Last Jedi was probably the worst of the 11. I would still rewatch it.
Oh, and okay, this just popped up. Robert Green, how did Darth Maul survive his battle with Obi-Wan? I don't want to spoil this for Elysium, Robert, so I might have to message you privately or something, because it's got some spoilers in there.
Fire away with it, because you can put spoilers up. Most people have seen it, and we'll be watching it to talk about the expanded universe. And if we're dancing around it, it'll leave some disappointed. So the expanded universe is big enough for me to read other stories. So if there's something, I won't say spoiled, enlightened, and I'll still enjoy reading about it.
Well, this is something that it takes place and everything in the Clone Wars animated series. We don't know exactly how, Robert, but Maul escapes from Naboo and goes to, I think it's like Raxus Prime or another junk world along those same lines. And I think it's in season 4. Another Dathomirian male, Savage Opress, who is voiced by Clancy Brown, is tapped by another character by the name of Mother Talzin, who was a Dathomirian witch. Essentially, she could use the Force. They just called it something different. And Savage and Maul were actually brothers. And Savage eventually finds Maul living underground on this junk planet and everything, and he brings him back and everything to Dathomir. And Mother Talzin heals his mind, doesn't make him crazy. Takes the robotic legs that he had fashioned for himself and makes them something a little more streamlined. And they have possession of one part of his lightsaber that didn't get destroyed during his duel with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and sent him on his merry way to wreak as much havoc as possible. So, and he does pop up in the Clone Wars comic books or anything, while Dark Horse still had licensing rights or anything to the comics, and there's some stories with him in there as well. But his main story arc takes place in the Clone Wars animated series and in Rebels, both. He does make an appearance and everything. And when I say appearance, he has several episodes that he's in and everything in Rebels. So, but yeah, he's that's essentially how Darth Maul survived. So,
I'm wondering, is there any redemption arc for him with it, or is that going too far into?
I don't want to. Again,
Okay.
I don't want to spoil anything, but I will tell you, he does have a satisfying and interesting resolution to his arc. So I will
Okay.
I will say that much. So
That's good.
Elysium, any other questions or anything you want me to clarify or flesh out for you?
I suppose we mentioned before the Yuzhong Vong War, but we can deal with that later if there's anything else in the animated or.
Well, I'll be candid with you. I did not get a chance to read all of the books that deal with the Yuzhong Vong War because it is a very long story arc because it is told through I don't know how many books. I know it's a lot of books, but I don't know how many. And it does the story arc and everything does stretch out in terms of books that were published. I think over like a 3 or 4 year span, if not maybe more, or maybe it might have been less. But I do remember it was a lot. And it is a massive, sweeping conflict. And to the chat, Chanthorpe, hey bud, good to see you. Thank you for popping by. I appreciate it. Hope you have a good night or a good day, my friend. At least I will be candid with you. The Yuzhong Vong saga, which quite literally is many books are in that particular bunch of the expanding universe. It's almost a saga unto itself. It's so big. I'll give you the broad strokes and everything. It does deal with this alien race that's from outside of the Star Wars galaxy. I mean, literally, no, it's not something. It's within the Star Wars universe, but in terms of the galaxy that all the Star Wars events and movies take place in, this alien race comes from outside of it. And it deals with all the main characters plus several more. We get time with the Solo twins, Jason and Jaina. We get time with Luke and Mara Jade's child, and everything else under the sun. I mean, it is quite literally a huge, expansive story. But if you have the time and the energy to sit down and read it or listen to it on Audible or whatever, I would highly recommend doing so because it is a truly amazing ride. So,
is that where you kind of wish the sequels had gone with that rather than the direction they went? Or could they still go that way?
Well, the issue is the Yuzhong Vong story arc is so huge, and I'm not using hyperbole here. I'm being quite literal. There are so many books in the Yuzhong Vong War. It would take quite literally, I would think, just as many movies that exist in the 9 that are already in the Star Wars saga, if not more. If they were going to adapt the Yuzhong Vong War, they would almost need to do a TV series or a multi-part miniseries. Like, I don't know if you'll get this reference or not. There's a miniseries or anything from like I think the 1970s or so that Matt Ambassador introduced me to called North and South, and it deals with the American Civil War.
Oh, I love that.
Okay,
love that show.
All right. It would take something like that, anything like a 3-part miniseries or at least a 2-part miniseries, to even come close to adapting the novels that make up the Yuzon Vong War for television. That's just how sheerly massive the story arc is.
So, from my understanding, yeah, like you said, it's an outside force, and basically the Star Wars galaxy have to unite to fight against them.
Essentially.
Is that correct? Or?
Yes, essentially. Okay. Although there's a lot of political intrigue, obviously there's a lot of battling, there's a lot of... And I'll tell you one small little thing about the Yuzon Vong themselves. They are not affected by the Force. At least not.
Sorry, I cut you off.
Okay, let me put it in a better way. Force users can use the Force on them, but they have to either be in groups or they have to be very highly skilled or trained in the ways of the Force.
Even so, it would be even more than the is it Watto? That the Jedi mind tricks don't work on me.
Yes.
Is it in that way that they're not affected, or even more that?
It might be a little bit higher elevation, maybe, but not by much.
So it's essential. Oh, so yeah. Even so, there's characters within the Star Wars universe who are not affected, but this is general for their race.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Essentially, yeah, basically. So,
I suppose going to pushing on the. Now, this is from within the expanded universe. If you know, does it form any connection with R1? Are humans from an original planet, or scattered? How does that humans came to dominate the Star Wars galaxy? If you know the story within.
Why are humans so prominent within the Star Wars galaxy and aliens are kind of rare, but there's a lot of different alien races? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, pretty well. I understand like that there's more aliens than humans, but humans seem to control. And is it set? I know it's set in a galaxy, long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away. So is there a connection, humans in that galaxy, with the real world in essence, or what's the story within?
Honestly, there really isn't a connection. If there is one, I'm not aware of it. Something that you may not be aware of. When Palpatine took over, he implemented a series of anti-alien protocols where aliens were pretty much marginalized throughout the Empire. And humans were given pretty much free reign and roam and run of everything, particularly within the Empire. Before Palpatine and the Empire and everything, that was not actually the case. The humanoid races and the alien races pretty much coexisted with one another. There might have been some personal issues between select individuals, but there wasn't widespread animosity per se. But as far as humans having kind of seemingly the run of things, it was more balanced out before the Empire took over and everything. It was a little more amicable. That was the word I'm looking for. Amicable between the humanoid races and the alien races in the Star Wars universe.
So going back to our earlier discussion, that's why Thrawn was one of the, if not the only alien within the High Imperial Navy.
Yes.
Would that be correct?
Yeah. Thrawn, to the best of my knowledge, was the only non-human Grand Admiral in the entirety of the Imperial military. And if you consider the size and scope of the Imperial military, both Navy and Army, for there to be only one alien Grand Admiral, that was exceedingly rare because of, like I said, the anti-alien protocols that Palpatine put in place shortly after he took power.
That answers a lot.
Okay, excellent.
It's difficult to know when, like, as you know, like, well, I know a little bit more than I used to, but and like you said, the expanded universe is so big, it's difficult to kind of pinpoint a question or a place.
Well, what I was hoping, my hope was with this stream was to give you a good overview of the expanded universe. That way you could go back and listen to this and go, okay, I want to go pick up on something Ambassador said here and explore it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, as you just said, the expanded universe is so massive. You could spend years on any number of storylines or anything, like I said, from the comics to the novels to video games, the animated series that they have done, and so on. And you would still be hungry for more.
Yes, it is a universe that it feels real. It's one of those science fiction universes that is so large that you want to get in a ship and explore. Like I said I'll listen back to Tron trilogy. Was it the Dark Empire? Is it?
It was okay. The Thrawn trilogy was one storyline. Dark Empire 2, and Empire's End were another storyline. Yes.
Yeah, so they're ones that I'd like to explore, the Yuzhang Vong War. When I love fleshed out universes that feel lived in, feel real.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I enjoy Trek, but sometimes it feels it's not that lived in. It feels too
sterile.
Somewhat, yes. The earlier Trek seemed to be a bit more real. It got a bit too sterile, lost its way a bit, and seemed to lose some of its, though they expanded on races, it seemed to lose some of its believability. Yes, Chan. Compared to other trilogy, to other universes, while Trek is a big universe, the races somewhat became more hats. To me, I've seen there's more nuance in other franchises that was in earlier Trek, but seems to be less so in more modern Trek.
Yeah. And
I'm open to being corrected.
No, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. And just very quick to the chat, Robert Green, thank you for popping by, sir. Glad you stopped by, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow in the chat. So you have a good day, and we'll talk to you later. Yeah, honestly, I'm not as well versed with the, I guess, for lack of a better term, the expanded universe of Star Trek as I am with the expanded universe of Star Wars and what have you. But just from the simple fact that we have so many different types of media that is attached to the expanded universe of Star Wars, and what we have in terms of and with Star Trek. Star Wars does seem more expansive. And very quickly to the chat, Superior Hero Reviews. Good afternoon, sir. Good to see you. Superior, I sent you a message on Instagram. I know you don't get on there very often. That included my email address. If you can, email me back and everything so that I have yours, or either just DM me or private message me on Instagram with yours so that we can keep in contact, because I've got something coming up next month that I think you might want to be a part of. So, but all the same, thank you for popping by, my friend. Good to see you, as always. But yeah, I think one of the things that makes the Star Wars universe or the expanded universe seem so massive is the fact that we have such a broad timeline, or a very long timeline. Because while we have the prequels now, we have the original trilogy, and we have the sequels and everything, there's so much more that's outside of the main saga films and everything. As I mentioned to you, Dark Horse Comics, they did numerous series of comics that dealt with the prehistory of the Star Wars universe, and even went further back than that and everything, to like the very foundation of the Jedi Order. And I'm talking about like this was like more than 5,000 or 6,000 years before the foundation of the Republic, that deals with the discovery of beings that could tap into the Force. I think the series is actually called Dawn of the Jedi. And they did a novel. I think they did at least one novel, and they had done a limited run comic book series. Not only that, they've got a series called Star Wars Legacy that takes place in a distant future period in the Star Wars universe, that takes place well after the main saga, or the main line of novels that make up the expanded universe as well, and deals with ancestors of the Skywalker and various other families within the Star Wars universe. And that right there, those two factors do make the expanded universe feel much bigger. Because, and don't misunderstand me, I'm not bashing on Trek. I do like Star Trek and everything, but I'm more of a Star Wars fan. But the thing is,
I say neither would I. I mean, Star Wars and Star Trek, I love them both.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I mean, I'm more casual fan with Star Wars, but I still love what I've seen.
Yeah. But the thing is, with Star Trek, it's kind of a limited time frame, because I don't know why, but for whatever reason, we have not gone into the distant future of the Star Trek universe. And I think that's something that everybody very much would want to see. We get glimpses here and there and yonder. Like, I know they did some episodes that dealt with a character from the distant future in the Star Trek universe in Enterprise. And we do get glimpses from like the series finale of Star Trek The Next Generation with All Good Things. But it's almost like they're I don't want to say afraid, but they don't want to go too far outside of everybody's comfort zone and do different stories in different time periods. Whereas with Star Wars, you have people that want to go into that universe and tell different types of stories within different time frames. And that's why Dark Horse and so many of the publishing companies that have done novels and everything else under the sun have fleshed out the universe in such a broader sense. So,
I suppose, to be fair, was it the next season of Discovery is set 900 years in the future from the Discovery timeline?
Yeah. And that's what I've heard.
Now, I suppose for me, Discovery was difficult. It wasn't terrible. There was an awful character, and it did mess up a lot of canon. But I'm willing to see what they give it a go to see what they do with season 3.
Yeah,
it is set slightly in the future. Now, I suppose I should clarify something. Star Wars is continuous. It's got continuity. Trek seemed to have a lot of it was episodic.
Yeah, it had a lot of gaps.
And one thing would repeat, and it didn't seem to have consequence heading into the next episode. A lot of characters it's homogenous. It's, while it looked diverse, there was still a small number of set characters. And maybe that's where I'm coming from. The universe itself might be expanding. And it's, just to clarify, I'm sorry, I've been up since 6 o'clock this morning. It's 10 at night now. And I just got an email and I have an hour of work to do after this. So I'm...
Okay. Well, my
mind isn't functioning.
We can wrap up here in a few minutes if you need to go. I understand. So that's no
problem. It's fun. It's some small bit of graphic design for tomorrow, so it's good.
Okay. All right.
Enjoyable for me. So not so much of a chore, even though it is work.
Right. So, but yeah, as I said, if you really want to get a sense of the universe outside of the movies, you've got a plethora of material and everything at your disposal that you can read and watch and digest, and in some instances even play and everything that will really enrich your experience of the Star Wars universe. And I think for me and everything, speaking as a fan, when I found out back in the early 90s that they were going to start doing, that Timothy Zahn was writing these books and the books were coming out, I was like, oh my gosh, yes! We're getting something after Jedi. This is great. This is awesome. I love this. And back in those days, books, and even now, even books today, hardback books, they were a little bit on the pricey side, but they weren't too bad. And I got an allowance as a kid, as most kids do. And every few months or so, I think it was, or maybe it was one every year or whatever, the books would come out. And we would go to the local bookstore, and I'd be like, I'm here for my copy. And they would have it ready for me. And my mom would be like, well, I know what you're going to be doing the next few days. I was like, uh-huh. I read through Heir of the Empire. I was like, okay, where's the next one? Where's the next one? Where's the next one? Where's the next one? And eventually the next one came out. And I read Dark Force Rising, and I was like, well, this is good. Okay, now where's the next one? Where's the next one? There's the next one. And eventually The Last Command came out. And I was like, okay, they did this. Give me more. And they did. And I was happy. I was exceedingly happy. I was a happy Star Wars fan. There is actually one thing I want to bring up and everything that I haven't thus far. They actually did, I think it was like a few years before the remasters, they did a story called Shadows of the Empire. Did you ever hear of that?
I've heard the name. What it's about, okay. I don't know.
Okay. I'll give you the broad overview. I don't want to spoil it. Shadows of the Empire actually takes place in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. This was their first attempt at doing a story that bridges the movies. You had a graphic novel, you had an audio cassette and a CD, you had a comic book series, you had a pop-up book, you had a toy line, and you had a soundtrack. You had everything but a freaking movie. But the campaign was so successful that nobody cared that there wasn't a movie. And it's actually a really neat story. I don't want to spoil it for you, but we do get introduced to a few interesting characters. We obviously get our main gang together again and everything. Minus Han, obviously. He's in Carbonite. But we get some time with Han, or not Han. I just said Han was in Carbonite. What the heck? Luke and Leia, we get some time with the droids. Like I said, we get introduced to a couple of new characters and everything, both on the goods for the Rebels and for the Empire. We get some time with the bounty hunters, even with Boba Fett and a couple of the others, I think. And it is a really satisfying story. So if you can track down a copy of the book or the comic or whatever, I would recommend giving it a read. You can probably find it on audiobook if you wanted to hear it read and everything. And it's just as good that way too. So.
I suppose one thing we could have a quick look at is
Mhm.
stuff outside of the canon, but still fun in Star Wars based, like Robot Chicken, like Star Wars, Lego Star Wars.
Yeah.
Stuff I mean, I have seen some of
Well,
Robot Chicken Star Wars,
Robot Chicken,
and
Robot Chicken has done its fair share of Star Wars shorts, and of course we've got the Family Guy Star Wars movies as well, or episodes as well, that were parodies of the original trilogy. I don't think they ever did the prequel trilogy on Family Guy, to the best of my knowledge. So I could be wrong, but I don't think they did. But yeah,
and of course, that
go ahead.
wonderful scene in Ferris Bueller.
Oh yeah, where they play the main theme from Star Wars when the two guys have got the Ferrari. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Well, you know, the crazy thing is with Star Wars, it has quite literally bled into the overall pop culture landscape of, quite literally around the world. I mean, I'm sure there are certain parts of the world that have never heard of Star Wars, and for them, I weep. Yes. That is a sad thing. That makes the ambassador sad. But it is quite literally it was probably one of the most iconic pieces of pop culture in existence. I mean, it has inspired filmmakers to go off and start their careers as filmmakers. It's inspired actors and writers and, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people on YouTube who talk about it almost ad nauseum, but still we love it that much.
I think Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who was big, not as big as either of those two. But I wouldn't. There is Star Wars, Star Trek. I don't see a difference why people can't enjoy both. I know in the past there's been some people, I'm Star Wars, I'm Star Trek. Mm-hmm. You can enjoy both.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yes, and Spaceballs we didn't mention.
Yeah. Spaceballs! Watch out! Yeah. Well, somebody told me, I can't remember who it was or anything, but it was another channel that told me that for a long time, hey, Ensign Ricky, good to see you, bud. Thank you for popping in. Yep, doing well. We're talking the EU today. Everything. This is the final part and everything of me and Elysium's journey. So, and it's been a fun one. I will not lie. So, but yeah, someone told me, I feel bad that I don't remember who said this, But for a lot of years and everything, there was kind of a divide. Now, there wasn't like any animosity or anything towards anyone in terms of liking Star Trek or Star Wars, but they didn't necessarily mingle all that often, if ever. And eventually, that divide started to break down, and people from the Star Wars fandom and from the Star Trek fandom started to associate openly. In a manner of speaking, it's not they didn't associate openly as it was.
I know for me, a normie, I was just seeing these on TV and I just wanted science fiction. I didn't care. I got Star Wars, I got Star Trek, and I didn't know there was a rivalry until I got to college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And honestly, that's when I discovered Babylon 5.
Yeah.
So I never saw a reason for why you couldn't enjoy both.
Mm-hmm.
They're different. I think we mentioned, for me, Star Wars is a bit more expansive, but they're both still big universe. Just to clarify, they're both still big universes.
Yes. And real quick to the chat, Neon Sci-Fi brings up this question, and I want to try to address it. Yeah. Is there any EU stories that covers when the Empire took over and raided the Jedi Temple? Did the Empire use any of the knowledge from the Temple for research experiments and making weapons? For example, like Jedi mind tricks and using it and making a brainwashing machine. Neon, to the best of my knowledge, I do not believe that there is any stories along those lines. Pretty much Palpatine either destroyed or confiscated everything that he could gather up from the Jedi Temple's archives and databases and so on. So my guess, and again, I say I have not read everything in the expanded universe. It would be quite literally impossible unless you have absolutely nothing to do, nothing else to do with your time. And if you know, if you do, hey, props to you. You won at life. But to the best of my knowledge, no, there was not anything like that. The only thing that the Empire really tinkered with in terms of like Jedi abilities or the Force was trying to create Force-sensitive clones. And for whatever reason and everything, and this is kind of explored in the games, The Force Unleashed, The Force Unleashed, and The Force Unleashed 2, where we're introduced to the character of Starkiller, or as he's actually known, his given name was Galen Marek. This was a character that was an apprentice of Vader and eventually turned against him. And minor spoilers for you, Elysium, and for anybody that's not played the first Force Unleashed game, Starkiller dies. In the sequel game, Force Unleashed 2, Vader is trying to clone Starkiller, well, aka Galen Marek, and create a Force-sensitive clone. And for whatever reason, and I don't remember, I think there is some technobabble or snippets somewhere that explains why it's hard to create Force-sensitive clones or stable Force-sensitive clones. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to do it. It's not something that you can just pop in some genetic material and pop yourself out a clone of, say, well, just for an example, Anakin. You would have to create several copies before you find one that actually is attuned to the Force. Okay. And yeah, Neon Sci-Fi, he's like, yeah, I played it both. Yeah, I played the first one. I never got a chance to play the second one, but I have seen the story cinematics from Force Unleashed 2, and in my opinion, it looked like a great game. I wish I had the opportunity to play it. So, but again, that's another example of a video game expanding upon the lore, but not necessarily breaking the cinematic universe the cinematic canon that had already been established. So.
And that is, I suppose, what's important when you're dealing with an expanded universe, to flesh out rather than to contradict what's gone before.
Yeah, very true. Well, the thing to remember is, as I mentioned before, the movie canon and the EU canon are separate. They are considered separate entities and everything. Now, you can intermesh them if you so choose, but you don't have to get the basic story of, well, either the 6 or 9, or sometimes some people just say 3 movie arc or episode movie arc of the Star Wars saga. You can leave out the EU and everything still makes perfect sense.
And that's good. It's nice to have something that you can dig deeper into. And it would be nice if, like you mentioned, that some of it was made canon. And saying, if you want to find out more, check out this book or check out this series. But you're not like a normie like me could still go into the cinema, rent a DVD, and just enjoy the movies or TV show without needing to go into the expanded universe. But it is something that I'd want to, after watching the movies, to find out. I want to know more.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what the EU is good for. And that's what makes the EU fun. It expands upon what has been established in one way or another through the movies, or it's something that someone has been inspired by through the movies to go off and create on their own. That's what the purpose of the EU was always meant to be. A expansion, and in some instances, maybe a continuation of what we get in the movies. It's kind of like what I said yesterday I didn't really say it explicitly or anything during my stream about Rey. All of the materials that were made either before or after the sequels that were meant to fill in plot gaps that were left out by bad writing or faulty writing or a rushed schedule for the sequels failed to address. The expanded universe or legends, that was never its intent. It was meant to expand upon the universe, give us more interesting stories, introduce us to new characters and so on, but it never had to be a support or a crutch for the movies themselves. Kind of like with Clone Wars. You could, if you wanted to, you could watch episodes 1 and 2. Hold on one second. Bless me. Didn't want to blow out everybody's ears, particularly yours, Elysium. Anyway, what you could do if you wanted to, if you were going to do like a marathon, you could watch episodes 1 and 2 and then watch all 7 seasons of Clone Wars. And then if you really wanted to, you could watch all 4 seasons of Rebels. And then you could watch, I think Solo takes place before Rogue One so you could watch Solo and then watch Rogue One, and then you could watch episodes 4, 5, and 6. And then for me, I would stop right there. But that's me. But if you just wanted to watch episodes 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, and if you still wanted to include Solo and Rogue One, you could. But again, you don't need all that extra stuff to understand the story, the characters, and everything else. All that other stuff just fleshes out what we don't know about the characters. But we know enough about the characters just on their own from the movies that we don't need the other.
Yeah. And actually, that was one thing eventually to end up. What's the viewing order? Because I will be trying to introduce my wife to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I will need to talk to the Jedi Master about. Do you watch them in release order or do you watch them in chronological?
I would watch them in chronological universe order. And when I say chronological universe, I mean within the Star Wars universe. Watch 1, 2, 3, and then if you want, like I said, if you want to watch Clone Wars and Rebels, and then Solo and Rogue One, and then 4, 5, and 6, you can go that route. Or if you just want, like I said, if you want to leave out the stuff in the middle and just watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that would be the order I would recommend you watch it in. And then if you absolutely must, you can watch the sequels after that. So, but again, I'm joking a little bit. Don't take anything I'm saying too seriously.
But as we've had our discussions, it's understandable why you would not be as enthusiastic about 7, 8, 9 as 1 to 6.
Yes. So, well, Elysium, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you want to ask or touch upon and everything?
No, honestly, I think I have a few projects to do. Was it Tron and the those Dark Empire?
Yeah,
those 3, and then on to maybe if Clone Wars might be on Netflix. They were for a while here in Ireland.
I don't think they are anymore. I think when Disney launched Disney Plus, they took back the license from Netflix. So you may have to wait until Clone Wars or until Disney Plus is accessible overseas. Or
it's accessible here at the moment. So I'll have to have a word with the wife and see, can we add another streaming service on?
I will tell you, I think it's like $6.99 a month, so it's not on the high end of things. It's not terribly expensive. So if you can't afford it, it won't. I don't know what y'all's budget is, and that's not my business. But it's like $6.99 a month, which isn't bad. So
not too bad.
And you can even get, I think, like a month free or something like that, or a week free or something like that. You can get a free trial, and you could probably sit down and you could probably watch Clone Wars in that time frame. I'll double check and let you know what the free trial period is for Disney Plus, because it's been a while since I had it or anything, so I don't honestly remember. But
okay,
yeah. Of course, you can't always go another route. You didn't hear this from me, and maybe I shouldn't say it online, so I'll say it after we go off air, because I don't want to get in trouble. It may not necessarily be, it may not be considered illegal, but I don't want to risk anything.
No, it's legal. We'll just say that it's legal.
Yes, it's legal. It's perfectly legal. What I'm about to tell you. I will tell you, it doesn't involve sailing the high seas. It does not involve that. So, anyway. All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Elysium, I honestly am glad that you and I we talked this out and talked about doing this project. And it has been a lot of fun. And I hope you walk away with a lot more knowledge than when you walked in a few weeks ago into my my little temple.
Oh, that's true. I mean, I have been promoted after all.
Yeah, and I think we can swap that night out. You're a master now.
Excellent.
So you have passed your trials. You're a master.
Although probably that robot chicken master who was sent for the pizza.
Yeah.
I can work my way up.
Yarrow Poof. Yeah, everybody, you gotta love Yarrow Poof. Oh man, those are some great ones right there. So, all right, folks. Well, as I said, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up here. I want to thank everybody that's been in the chat: Neon Sci-Fi, Ensign Ricky, Robert Green, Superior Hero Reviews, Chan Thorpe, Nancy V333, Happy Dinosaur. Let's see who else was here.
Pixelate was here earlier.
Yeah, Pixelated. Thank you all very much for tuning in this afternoon. I hope you all enjoyed this. For those of you that will come across this video on the replay, if you enjoyed this discussion, smash that like button, share this video out, and if you are not a part of this community, the Ambassadorial Wing, consider hitting that subscribe button and become a part. So, just one quick update or anything, because I've already done an update yesterday. Tomorrow afternoon, me and Mountains of Elysium and Fiona Wolf and Classic Comics will be back with another review of Babylon 5 Season 2, and we'll be covering the episode Soulmates. And then later this week, I will be bringing you part 3 of my Star Wars fan fiction, Ray Who. And I want to give a shout out to a couple other channels that I do work with rather on occasion. Orange Hat Reviews on Friday night. He is going to be having the next part of his Harry Potter movie discussion, and they're going to be covering Deathly Hallows Part 1. That will be at 8 p.m. Central Time, so be sure and check out Orange Hat. And also another channel that I've been working with over the last several weeks, Nerdy in Many Ways, is a great channel. Dawson, who runs it essentially. Well, obviously it's his channel. He does run it. He's got a few things coming up. He and I are going to be. We're planning on doing a live review of the season 1 finale of Raised by Wolves, and I will keep you all updated on that. But if you have not subscribed to Nerdy in Many Ways, I highly suggest you do so. I suggest you subscribe to Mountains of Elysium, to Pixelated, and I think Nancy V, you also have a channel. I know Happy Dinosaur does as well. So to everybody that catches this, go look up these channels and hit that subscribe button and support them, because they are worth your time, and they're worthy of support. So
we're a community here, support each other.
Yeah. And I appreciate everybody that's been in the chat. I appreciate everybody that has been tuning in for these streams. This is the last part, but me and Elysium will be back and everything. We're gonna toss around some ideas and see what we can come up with next for y'all. So that all being said, folks, y'all have a great night. And until next time, this is the Ambassadors signing off.
I have always been